The cast of Riverdale took over Paleyfest on Sunday, and we got some hints on what's to come for the rest of Season 2, and guys, it is good. What's going on, Riverdale fans? Lisa here, and this weekend was pretty awesome. The cast of Riverdale was part of the closing night of Paleyfest here in LA, which celebrates for like a week and a half some of the best TV shows, ones that have been on the air for a while, and some newer ones, and it's one of my favorite events every year. Now, if you missed it, you can go watch the full panel over on the Paley Center's Facebook, and I think you really should go watch it because it was a fun panel, and I'm only going to go over a few things because I can't play you the video for copyright reasons and whatever. But the link to the full panel is down in the description below. Before I get to that though, just be warned, if you're not caught up on the season, there may be tiny spoilers ahead or hints at what's to come, so if you don't want to watch it, or watch this video, that's totally cool. But if you were lucky enough to be in the audience of Paleyfest, we were treated to a screening of the upcoming musical episode where the cast takes on Carrie the Musical. This episode airs on April 18th, so it's only a little ways off, but there is only one episode, this week's episode, before that, so brace yourself for a few weeks of reruns. Anyway, I just want to give a quick review of my thoughts on this musical episode, and don't worry, I won't give away any spoilers. I'll just give some hints about what's to come, because I want you guys to be surprised by this episode. And there's only really one way to describe it, and I'm going to describe it like how the kids today would describe it probably. It's shook. So I wasn't familiar with this musical version of Carrie, and sometimes musical episodes in TV shows just don't work for shows. They're forced. But Riverdale, I feel like, was the perfect place to do a musical episode. And thankfully they didn't do it by just shoving random pop songs for these kids to sing, which would make it more feel like Glee. They did it with a musical that just, it is perfectly lines up the characters of the musical with the characters on the show and what they're all going through right now. So I think it was just a great choice, and yes, there are some cringy, cheesy moments. I'm sorry, KJ, obviously you're dancing. He's not a dancer. He did the best he could, but there's some pretty cringy, funny moments as he's trying to get his groove on. But overall, I think this was a great choice, and this episode is a really big catalyst for some of the characters. There's big turning points and big things that happen, and it was probably my favorite episode so far of this season, which is a good sign because I think I said that about last week's episode, so it just means the season is getting better with each episode, and I love that. Now, without giving super specifics, I will say some characters that have been fighting for a while make up. Some characters finally take a stand against those using them. One character does recreate the iconic pig's blood scene from Carrie, and maybe it's in the musical or maybe it's in their own life. The Black Hood does indeed return, and yes, someone will not make it out of the episode alive. Did that get you excited for it? Now let's move on to some highlights from the panel. First, like I said, this week's episode fills in the gaps between last week and this musical episode, because in the musical episode we did see some FP Alice scenes which got the crowd roaring. Now, if you've been shipping these two, you'll finally get to see them in scenes together in this week's episode. There's a big episode for Alice, the Serpents, and FP, so if people are interested in seeing more of FP and Alice, I think you should watch this week's episode. Creator Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa teased at the panel, and let's just say the crowd was totally into it. In the upcoming musical episode, you'll see more of a character that was once villainous but is now on the road to redemption, and that is Chuck, played by Jordan Calloway. We started to see this road to redemption in the Twisted Tales from the Dark Side episode, so why bring a hated character back? Roberto shared, quote, "I love Jordan Calloway. He's such a great villain for us, but we want him to be able to do more stuff with the show, so part of the story was to redeem him because he's so great, and I think he'd be great with the gang." See, there is hope for villainous people to learn from their mistakes and turn their lives around. Also, I think the CW just loves using Jordan because not only is he on Riverdale, he's also over on Black Lightning. Now, I mentioned that the Black Hood makes their return in the musical episode, which should actually not really come as a surprise. I don't think anyone bought that the janitor was the sole Black Hood, especially when we learned that there were two different handwritings on those notes. Roberto said they had 3 likely suspects when season 2 started, so they were always dropping red herrings so they could pick as the season went on. As far as the second half of the season goes, they always knew it wasn't going to just be Mr. Svensson. For the last 10 episodes or so, he says that they have had a pretty clear idea and they've been writing towards it. So does that make it pretty clear that Chick is the other Black Hood? Or is that still too obvious? The musical episode does drop a few different suspects into our, peripheral, but right now I still feel like everything is screaming for Chick to be the Black Hood. For all you Bughead shippers, Cole's favorite Bughead moment is yet to come. He shared, quote, "Without spoiling too much, my favorite moment is coming up in an episode. It's going to be a moment between Betty, Jughead, and Chick, which is my favorite moment from season 2. Lily added that Jughead is a badass in season 2, so just wait. Speaking of badass, remember when we saw Betty hovering over Chick's bed while he slept with a lighter? Yeah, Lily shared that it was originally written as Betty holding a feather, which kind of sounds weird, right? Lily shared, people might perceive this in a strange way, so I was like, what about a lighter instead? I gotta say, good choice there, Lily, and of course, Cold chimed in joking the feather would be used later for Bughead, which totally got loud cheers. One relationship that's been growing and picking up steam these last few episodes is Choni, aka Toni and Cheryl. Fans have really seemed to embrace this coupling, and for Madeleine, she says that this storyline wasn't a realization, but something Cheryl's actually known for a long time, which kind of explains her behavior before. Madeleine said it makes so much more sense when you see Cheryl and the way she acts towards people in season 1 and the angst that she's built up and the anger about not being loved by her mother, therefore not loving herself. Tony's really helping her explore that love for herself. Roberto added that they had conversations about the storyline for Cheryl when they first introduced the character of Toni Topaz, who is bisexual. He also teased that this week's episode is a powerful one for those two characters. As far as the upcoming election for mayor, even though Hermione and Fred have a complicated, relationship, they've known each other for a long time, it seems like this election could get ugly. Marisol Nichols said that having Fred run against Hermione is her worst nightmare, and she thinks that Hermione is more of a political savvy kill or be killed instinct, and unfortunately Fred is her opponent. So yeah, if they have to kill him to get him out of the way, I don't think she'd hesitate. Although, as far as I know, I don't think Fred's dying, thankfully. And that wraps up the main teases for what's coming up the rest of the season that were revealed at Paleyfest. Now, there were some other funny moments during this panel, like the cast sharing their favorite karaoke songs, Roberto talking about the genesis of Clifford Blossom's wig room, and much more. And I don't have time to talk about everything, so just go watch the full panel online. It's a fun one, and if you're a big Riverdale fan, it'll be a blast for you. But that wraps up this video for now. Are you excited for the musical episode? I know I've been hard on characters like Archie and Veronica this season, but this episode is a real turning point for them, so you'll definitely not want to miss it for a lot of reasons. Also, with the return of the Black Hood, even though you haven't seen how he or she returns, do you still think it's Chick? Is there someone else could be? Could maybe Hiram have hired Svensson to shoot Fred and all the people in Archie's life just so, Hiram could get Archie on his side easier, and then this other Black Hood is just, their own rogue thing? What do you think's going on there? Hit me up in the comments with all your theories and thoughts, then click right over here to check out my other interviews with the cast of Supernatural and The Good Doctor from Paleyfest. If you like what you see, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and come back soon because we'll have a lot to talk about after this week's episode of Riverdale. Until then, my name's Lisa. Thanks for hanging out.